Even before the FBI executed its search warrant at Mar-a-Lago, both the left and the right, well, they did not disappoint in disregarding the facts and rushing to play politics. It's a well-known pattern on both sides, coming to the table with predetermined grievances and outcomes filled with grandstanding and outrage for political gain or perceived gain. Let's start with the Democrats and former Republicans, now branded Never-Trumpers, who after years of fishing say they have finally gotten their gotcha moment, their golden ticket that will end up with the former president in an orange jumpsuit. There are many on Twitter already predicting that. And that we have all known all along, according to these folks, Mr. Trump is a threat to national security.
If I were like Donald Trump's lawyer right now, and thank God I'm not, I would be advising my client to be telling my family, I am looking at jail time and we should, make plans accordingly.
You had to have something that's as vital as a national security secret, possibly nuclear information, because they're not going to do all this for love letters from Kim Jong-un.
There are laws against the improper handling of this material.
This could be the thing that really takes him down.
There's been a long list of things Democrats thought could take Donald Trump down. And despite Democrats' frankly troubled history with their lack of support for police, as well as the media, who have been some of the loudest voices on the failure of departments rather than what they do to protect communities, they seem to have all come together in recent days, shocked somehow by Republicans' anti-law enforcement sentiment.
This party, by the way, who has told us for so long that they back the blue and the Democrats want to defund the police, when you talk like this, it doesn't sound like you're pro-cop.
They talk about defending the blue. They talk about defending law enforcement officers. They fly the flags. They put on the bumper stickers. And yet, if it doesn't suit their political purposes, then they remain silent or even attack law enforcement officers.
As if no one can understand there's a difference between the FBI as an institution and beat cops. But there you go. That's Democrats. Let's turn to Republicans now. Even though the Democrats are acting hypocritical, they aren't wrong. The GOP has pointed the finger of blame in this dilemma directly at the FBI.
The FBI raid of President Trump is a complete abuse and overreach of its authority.
People around the world want to live under an American FBI and their leadership, not an American KGB.
The DOJ and FBI are supposed to be above politics, but if you just look at the targeted actions against the president and the people around him over the last several years, it's been anything but.
All right. Some MAGA Republicans are taking a step further despite threats to FBI officers, FBI agents, including in Cincinnati yesterday. An example, Florida State Representative Anthony Sabatini, who's running for Congress. He wants the Florida legislature to sever all ties with the DOJ and have any FBI agent conducting enforcement functions outside the purview of the state be arrested. He had this tense exchange with a CNN reporter.
In Florida, FBI agents are chasing down bank robbers, organized criminals, attacking cyber crime in this state, helping local law enforcement. You don't think there's any value in that?
It's an illogical argument. The FBI at this point is totally useless. We need to defund it.
Is the former president just above the law no matter what?
The FBI is not above the law.
If I'm saying they followed the law, which they did, to enter into that home, should that just not be allowed? The former president is above the law.
He's a political target. He's being harassed by a lawless rogue agency that's...
All right, both sides, as always, looking to one-up each other. There you go. Let's see if we can deal a little bit with the facts here. With that, we bring in Republican strategist Mark Weaver, Dr. Jason Nichols, senior lecturer at the University of Maryland. Nice to see you both. Jason, is there a there? Or do we not know yet?
That's hard to say. We don't know a whole lot. I think your other guests were wonderful in what they were saying. I think that there is certainly a possibility of a there, but we haven't seen the affidavit that led to the warrant. Of course, there are all these questions, and if there's one thing that this or the previous administration did, it was make us realize that there are holes in our laws and things that need to be shored up. Number one, what is the process for declassifying documents? I think, that's a big hole that we have. And all of these historians that I've been reading and all of these former government officials all have different ideas. Some people say, as the waving the wand thing, as soon as a sitting president says
it's amazing. Look, you ask 5 or 10 lawyers their opinion, you'll get 20 or 30 different opinions. Mark, you think about, we could probably all reasonably agree that if something's marked TSSCI and it ends up in somebody's private office down at their Florida club, that's probably not the place for it, right?
Yeah, apparently it was under a padlock that was put there by the FBI. And so that's probably a good place for it. We don't know whether the president declassified these things. We know he had the power to do so. What we do know is there was a
but is that really, hold on, I got to stop you, because we went down this road yesterday, and I did with Christina Bobb. Great, stipulate that the president had the right to declassify things. Right. There's still things that, at least a plain text reading of the Espionage Act, Mark, say shouldn't be outside of government control no matter what, whether they're classified technically by the president or declassified and then reclassified or not.
Yeah, we don't know the facts. What we do know is Americans want politicians to be treated the same no matter who they are. So if you're Hillary Clinton and you have a bathroom server full of classified information and there's no raid, then why is there a raid for another politician? This is the Biden Justice Department. I certainly have not criticized any lying FBI agents. I used to work with them when I was at the Justice Department. What I've criticized is the Biden Justice Department with Merrick Garland making political decisions about Joe Biden's likely opponent in the next election.
Yeah, no, there's a huge political component to this, no matter what the White House says. Merrick Garland knows that. He's been a student of it. You made an interesting point about Hillary Clinton, because back in 2016, allegedly it was James Comey, the FBI director, who was left to make the decision by himself about whether or not to charge Hillary Clinton. And here's what he had to say then.
Although there is evidence of potential violations of the statutes regarding the handling of classified information, our judgment is that no reasonable prosecutor would bring such a case.
Jason, couldn't you almost imagine Merrick Garland saying the exact same thing about this case?
Well, possibly, but I think the big thing is that there was a subpoena prior that Donald Trump and his people around him decided not to comply with. The thing is, Hillary
we don't
Clinton
know that, Jason.
Complied.
We don't know that.
That's the major difference here, is whether you comply with the law and with the legal requests, or if you're going to reject them outright. And I think that's the big difference here when you're talking about.
The problem, Jason, is we don't know that either way. We don't actually know what was in the subpoena. We don't know what documents were and were not handed over, and for that matter, we don't know why some of the documents that were taken was something like a commutation from one of the president's friends.
We also know that there were top secret documents.
It would have no national security effect at all. Mark, real quick, obviously Republicans hated that when James Comey did that. I'll get you on this real quick. Would that sort of be reasonable at the end of this?
How about just the same treatment for everybody? A poll this week said 79% of Americans think there's a two-tiered system of justice. That's a problem for a republic when most people think there's two tiers of justice.
Yeah, which is funny. Everybody thinks there's two tiers. It just depends on which side you're on. Decides who you think gets the better treatment. Mark, Jason, we got to leave it there. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks, Leland.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your cable provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.